On First News today, you know, folks tell you go to the desert Southwest. Gee, the air is clean and clear and you won't have any allergies. Wrong. If you get down there, there's no bugs because it's too hot and too dry. Wrong. Folks, I think they breed things in the desert and send them other places in the world. Well, they're talking about bugs out there in the field and what are around the desert. Dr. David Kearns is an entomologist, somebody who does work with the insect world. He's also an IPM specialist. And Dr. Kearns, let's talk a little bit about this bug world of ours here. It's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's we here in the desert Southwest we raise a lot of bugs.
Now, where do they come from? Why do they like this part of the world?
Well, it stays warm here pretty much year-round, and so they don't have as much difficulty. Bugs don't like cold weather, and being warm here year-round, they do quite well.
But what about the host plants? Do they have plenty of host plants beside the farmers' crops?
Yeah, there's particularly when we get a little rain, there'll be a lot of desert weeds grow, and they'll provide a lot of foliage for them to feed on. But we crop year-round here, so we grow bugs year-round.
Now let's talk about what's happening in this little room here. There's a lot of people working with you. Tell me about your crew, first of all. Who are these people that are working with you here?
Well, these are some very talented individuals. They all have degrees in agriculture, and they study insects and collect data.
Now, right now, today, you're working on a very special project. What's this project they're working with today?
Well, right now, we're mostly doing maintenance where we're trying to keep our bead armyworm populations going, but these populations have various degrees of resistance to certain insecticides, and we do experiments on resistance.
Now, you actually raise bead armyworms?
Yeah, we mix up artificial diet in small cups, and the worms will eat that and can go through their entire life cycle, and we basically keep care of them and their babies too.
Is that the incubators you have in the hall of the research center?
We do have incubators. Those aren't necessarily for the worms we're raising here, but those are for woolly whiteflies, which we're also trying to raise, which is a pest on citrus.
Now let's talk about this. Now you will raise these worms, and now you'll do experiments on them to see what works and what don't work on them to kill them.
Yeah. Basically, what we're trying to determine with our resistant worms is why are they resistant, and how genetically how is that transferred one generation to the next.
Now, what about yesterday? Now you're working on different projects all the time. You were into whiteflies.
Yeah, we have some whitefly trials out where we're looking at some experimental insecticides for whiteflies. There are a lot of new products that are coming down the line that can really do a good job controlling the whiteflies without killing a lot of the beneficial insects.
Now, one of the nice ones is the systemic use of chemicals, where the plant takes it up through the root system and then the insect dies from eating the sap.
Yeah, that's common use for certain products, particularly in vegetables. And there are some that you can actually spray on the foliage, and the plant will take it up and redistribute it in the plant. And we're looking at some of those as well, and they look very promising for whitefly control.
Now, you're working on an experimental type of cotton too, aren't you?
Not necessarily the cotton being experimental. There are some experimental cottons that have genes in them that make them resistant to insects, but mostly what we're dealing with are the insecticides themselves.
Dr. David Kearns is an entomologist and IPM specialist, and he does a lot of work with bugs right here in the desert Southwest. I'm George Gadley, and that is First News Today.